Not one drop of water enters Xiong'an. That was the chilling order in the summer of 2023 when torrential rains pounded northern China. To protect President Xi Jinping's dream city from flooding, authorities opened sluice gates and deliberately drowned neighboring villages. Entire communities were sacrificed to shield a gleaming, half-empty ghost town still under construction. This wasn't a natural disaster. It was a man-made decision. And it's the perfect symbol of what Xiong'an really is. A monument to political ambition built in defiance of geography, logic, and history. Xi calls it a millennial strategy. But let me tell you why Xiong'an is destined to go down as a historical failure, not a glorious legacy. Back in 2017, Xi Jinping unveiled his grand plan, a brand new city 100 kilometers south of Beijing, designed to relieve congestion, foster innovation, and showcase China's new era. This would be no ordinary city. It would be a millennial capital built from scratch. Xiong'an was hyped as the next Shenzhen or Pudong. But unlike those economic powerhouses, Xiong'an's fatal flaw was baked into its location from day one. This region has been a floodplain for centuries. The area is low-lying and crisscrossed by rivers and wetlands. It's quite literally the drainage basin of northern China. Building a futuristic megacity here is like setting up shop in the middle of a sponge. It will either get soaked or flood everything around, when you try to stay dry. And that's exactly what happened in 2023. To keep this city from turning into a waterlogged disaster, the government flooded nearby towns instead. Families lost homes, farmland was submerged, millions were affected. Why? Because protecting Xi's utopia had become the top priority, even at the cost of real human lives. That's not a policy success. That is a flashing red warning sign. And let me tell you a story, one that should have been taught at every portfolio meeting in Zhounanhai before they break ground in Xiong'an. In 419 AD, a warlord named He Lianbobo built a new capital called Tongwan City, deep in the Ordos desert. He envisioned a mighty fortress that would secure his dynasty and defy time. For a while it worked. Tongwan City looked impressive, but it was isolated, poorly supplied, and economically barren. Within only a few decades, it was abandoned. And today, it is a ruin in the sand, a ghost city swallowed by dust and long forgotten by history. Sound familiar? Today's Xiong'an is Tongwan City's spiritual twin. Both were built by powerful leaders chasing immortality. Both ignored geography, and both reflect a common theme in Chinese history. When rulers let their ego override reason, cities fall and legacies crumble. We don't need fortune cookies to know where this ends. History already wrote the script. Tongwan City is a ruin. Xiong'an will be the next. So, why did Xi pick this place? this mushy, flood-prone basin as the crown jewel of his leadership. Let's break it down. First, legacy. Xi Jinping doesn't just want to be remembered as an ordinary leader. He wants to be immortalized as a builder of dynasties. Deng Xiaoping had Shenzhen. In the 1980s, Deng Xiaoping, the architect of China's reform and opening, didn't just give speeches. He picked a fishing village next to Hong Kong and turned it into a special economic zone. That village was Shenzhen. At the time, this was a radical move. China was just recovering from Mao Zedong's chaos. Deng's decision to test capitalism on the southern frontier was risky and bold, but it was also geographically brilliant. The city sat right next to Hong Kong, a capitalist powerhouse. The city had port access. It faced the booming South China Sea, and it was plugged into global trade routes. Shenzhen didn't succeed because of propaganda. It succeeded because of location, timing, and market-driven logic. Deng let the invisible hand of capitalism run wild, and within 2 decades, Shenzhen went from rice paddies to a global tech hub. And after Deng, Jiang Zemin had Pudong. In the 1990s, Jiang Zemin oversaw the rise of Pudong, a previously underdeveloped area across the river from Shanghai's historic Bund. Jiang didn't invent Shanghai, but he knew how to bet big on infrastructure. And under his watch, Pudong became a financial center. Iconic skyscrapers rose, including the Oriental Pearl Tower and Jinmao Tower. The region became a symbol of China's urban modernization. Again, this wasn't just about political ambition. Pudong had everything a modern city needed: proximity to Shanghai, access to ports, infrastructure, and a long history of global economic activity. Jiang Zemin's Pudong was a turbocharged extension of a city already humming with life. So it is not surprising that Xi wanted his own version of Shenzhen or Pudong. He wanted to build something from nothing too. And Xiong'an was supposed to be his shining city. Except it is not next to Hong Kong, not on a global trade route, not near a already thriving metropolis, not even on a dry land. Xi didn't supercharge an existing economic powerhouse. He tried to manifest one out of his political will and ancestral nostalgia. There was no natural reason to build a mega city in Xiong'an, only personal and symbolic reasons. And that is the key difference. Deng Xiaoping and Jiang Zemin worked with geography and economics. Xi is trying to bend them to his vision. Deng Xiaoping said, let some people get rich first. And Xi basically is saying, let some wetlands get flooded first. And then maybe someone will be motivated to move in. And another reason Xiong'an was chosen is actually the personal ties. Xi's mother was born in the region, and for a man obsessed with symbolism and ancestral pride, bringing glory to the soil of his lineage carries weight. This isn't just a political project, it's personal. And personal legacy makes bad urban decision. Also, there's a strong element of social control. Xi believes that Beijing, as the capital city, should be exclusively reserved for the elites. Too many undesirable, low quality migrants. Too much pressure on the capital city. Solution? Create a release valve. Xiong'an was pitched as a non capital function zone, which in plain language means we're moving the cloud. Government agencies, SOEs, and low income residents are being nudged, shoved, or dragged into Xiong'an to reduce Beijing's population. And finally, the most jaw dropping reason feng shui. Think about it. The leader of the Communist Party, an officially atheist organization, reportedly believes that Xiong'an sits in an auspicious location on the north-south axis of spiritual energy. Some say the decision aligns with cosmic flow. One of the most expensive urban projects in modern Chinese history may have been driven not by economics or geography, but by a leader's superstition. And to understand why this city is doomed, we need to look at the city it's meant to complement or eventually replace. As I said in another video, Beijing has been the capital for centuries. But let's be honest, it was never the ideal choice. It has no major rivers, no deep water ports, no fertile lands. It's a geopolitical outpost chosen for defense, not prosperity. The Mongols made it their capital to control northern China, and then the Ming Dynasty moved the capital there to defend against the Mongols. The communists stuck with Beijing because of historical inertia. But today, Beijing is water scarce, smog heavy, and geopolitically isolated from the engines of China's economy, which is in the south. Its political importance is massive. Its economic logic? Weak. Which raises the real question. If even Beijing is a compromised choice for capital, why on earth would you double down on that flawed location by building a second major city just south of it, in a swamp? I visited Xiong'an once. What I saw was just eerie. Giant train stations, but no passengers. Empty streets, shiny government buildings with no foot traffic. Vast apartment blocks, but not a soul in sight. It was like someone had built a movie set for some sort of sci-fi utopia and forgot to cast any actors. Billions of taxpayers' money have been poured into this project. Over $90 billion and counting. And yet, the people haven't come. Why? Because nobody wants to move to a city with no job market, no ownership opportunities, and no reason to exist beyond a leader's arbitrary decree. And just to make things worse, the government banned private property ownership in Xiong'an. You can't buy or sell land. You can't make a profit. So who is going to live there? The bureaucrats forced to relocate there? Low-income families with no choice? That is not a city. That is an administrative containment zone. You can build roads, buildings, even airports, but you can't attract real people with real dreams and real economic opportunities. You've built a monument to nothing and billions wasted. Xiong'an is really the ultimate case study in authoritarian urban planning, gone off the rails. It ignores geography, planting a megacity where floods are guaranteed. It ignores economic logic, situating a major population center away from trade hubs and industrial bases. It ignores human behavior, assuming that people will flock to a ghost city out of patriotism or propaganda. And it ignores history, repeating mistakes that dynasties and emperors made centuries ago. The belief that you can just will a city into existence with enough concrete and slogans is not just wrong, it's dangerous. It wastes taxpayers' money, it uproots lives, and it turns dreams into monuments of failure. When China's leaders ordered entire counties to be flooded just to save Xiong'an, the message was loud and clear. In China, politics over people. This wasn't flood control, it was reputation control. They had to protect the optics of the millennial city, even if it meant literally drowning the countryside. And let's be blunt, that's not governance. That is vanity. And when the next major flood comes, and it will they just do this again? How many more people will be sacrificed to defend a city built on the wings of one man's vision? You can engineer bridges and tunnels. You can pave over wetlands. But you can't erase the laws of physical nature. You can't bulldoze your way out of bad geography. And you certainly can't feng shui your way into sustainable urban development. Now, what happens next? Xi Jinping has basically tied his name, his legacy, and his reputation to Xiong'an. And that makes it politically impossible to admit failure, at least for now. But the writing is on the wall. If China ever goes through political reform or a shift toward democratic governance or greater transparency, one of the first things that future leaders should reconsider is the location of the capital itself. Beijing may have history, but it no longer makes sense. Xiong'an never did. A smart future China would choose a capital based on merit, not ego. Geography, economics, connectivity, and sustainability should drive that decision, not legacy, and definitely not superstition. Xi Jinping wanted a city that would last 1,000 years, but history tells us something else. The longer a regime insists on denying reality, the shorter its projects tend to live. Just ask the ghosts of Tongwan City. Ask the villagers who lost their homes to protect Xiong'an. Ask the empty streets and vacant apartments of a city waiting for a future that may never come. Xiong'an was supposed to be a grand dream. But dreams built on swamps, eagles, tend to sink. And when the water comes, there may not be anyone left to save this city.